Hi, I'm Vanessa Len, author of Never a Hero, the sequel to Only a Monster, which is about time-traveling monsters and the hero they have to fight.
It's an exciting day because Vanessa Len is back here with us. Vanessa Len is the best-selling Australian author who first sat with us when her debut young adult novel, Only a Monster, came out. She has returned to discuss its exciting sequel, Never a Hero. In this new book, we continue the journey of a girl who's discovered she's part monster, and she has unintentionally set off a series of events that changes the fates of everyone around her. Hi, I'm Gemma, and welcome to the red carpet. The brilliant Vanessa Len is here with us again to continue where we left off last time. Hi, Vanessa. I'm so happy you're joining us again.
Thank you so much, Gemma. I'm so happy to be back and so honored that I'm the first sequel author.
Yes, we're so excited. In your latest book, we're returning to a world where monsters exist and they have the power to steal time from humans. I loved following Joan's story and her journey of self-discovery. But to begin, can you introduce your new sequel to us?
Yes, so Never a Hero is the sequel to Only a Monster. And at the beginning of Never a Hero, Joan is recovering from the huge events of Only a Monster, and she sadly is the only one who remembers the events of the previous book. So she is shocked to discover that she's going to be dragged back into the monster world. There are going to be big, high stakes, and she's going to realize that there are so many things to still learn about the monster world.
I loved following Joan's story again, and your book, it shocked me so much because of how much changed between the first and the second book. You made quite a splash with book one in early 2022, and many people have been waiting for the sequel. Now that it's finally out, how are you feeling?
I am feeling so excited. I wrote the sequel during a really long lockdown in Melbourne, kind of a series of lockdowns. So I was locked down for probably more than a year. And so it was just me and this book and my giant whiteboard of a plot. And I'm feeling so happy it's out in the world and I'm back out in the world. Really, really thrilled to see it on the shelves.
And I'm so excited to have you back here with us and that it's out here on our shelves too. In the previous book, we follow Joan, a half-Chinese, half-English girl that learns the shocking truth about her family's secret, and more importantly, she finds out that she's half human and half monster. Can you tell us more about her duality and what that means to you?
Yeah, so I'm mixed race and my dad is Chinese Malaysian. My mum is Maltese Australian, and I'm really drawn to characters who belong in multiple worlds and sometimes don't belong in multiple worlds. So I really wanted to give Joan both a feeling of my own representation, which I didn't really have growing up. I wanted to make her half Chinese like me. But I was also really interested in exploring that world kind of metaphorically, having Joan belong and not belong in the monster and human worlds.
I think a lot of people are going to feel really represented just because there aren't many books that have biracial characters, and especially this is one of the first books I've read that have multi-species in a book. So I'm very excited that your book is out in the world and still continuing.
Thank you.
I loved going on this adventure with Joan as we continue to learn more about her heritage in the sequel. How has Joan changed since your last book?
Really good question. I really deliberately wanted to make her seem very young and a little naive at the beginning of the first book because I really wanted to give her room to grow. And she has grown so much by the time the second book starts. She's had, huge experiences. She's saved her family, and she's going to have to grow up even more throughout the second book as she's faced with new challenges and she meets new people. So I feel like that is one of the joys of writing YA. You're really writing a character as they learn and grow.
Yeah, character development is one of my favorite things to read in a book, and so I definitely saw her growth between the first and the second. I loved going on this adventure with Joan as we continue to learn more about her heritage in the sequel. How has Joan changed since your last book?
I love this question because I've been really thinking about it as well. I really deliberately in the first book made her start out as very young and naive, And I think I'd really wanted her to grow by the end of the first book, and she does. She has to face so many challenges and make really huge choices. And then again, in the second book, she has to make even bigger choices. So she's going to have to grow up even more. And it's one of the reasons I love writing YA. It's just a really great age to show people, really growing, learning about themselves. And it's really exciting to write that kind of character.
Yeah, character development is one of my favorite things, especially in young adult novels, which is like the time of coming of age. So that's where we see so much development and growth in characters. So I really love that about her. In your last book, Joan figured out her ability to steal time and travel to the past. It was a really new and exciting concept. Can you talk about what you did to make the story just as thrilling and never a hero?
Well, I was really keen to make sure that everything that had happened in the first book had real consequences. So there's no reset button. Everything that happened in the first book is going to have huge effects on the whole timeline in the second book. So that was the way I wanted to keep it really fresh. Everything is new. We're never going to go back to how things were.
Without totally spoiling book one, Joan is essentially starting over in book two. Can you tell us why you chose to tell the story in this way?
Yeah, I was really keen to show all the characters in a different light. And I think that was one of the things that was also going to show some of Joan's growth compared with these characters who are living the lives they probably should have lived in, if not for the events of book one. So she meets Nick again as an ordinary boy and Aaron again as an enemy this time. And I was really excited to write those kind of new dynamics and new kinds of relationships for her.
Yeah, dynamics is such a great word for that. We're going to go further into that question right now. Previously, we were introduced to a love triangle between Joan, another monster, and the monster slayer. What are their dynamics in the story now?
Oh, amazing question. I think between Joan and Nick, they've had this love story throughout timelines, and they keep getting drawn together because the timeline wants to fix itself and bring them back together again. But Joan is really starting to learn that it can never be as it was in the original timeline. There's too much stuff that has gone on since then. And even though Nick is now apparently an ordinary guy again, it's not like she can just start from scratch with him. There's just too much that's happened beforehand.
It was such a thrill to read Never a Hero. Your story included so many unexpected twists and reveals. How do you come up with all of these fun and shocking ideas?
Oh, thank you. Well, perhaps foolishly, I did so much planning and plotting and world building before I even started to write the first book. So I think I did about 3 years of planning everybody's backstories and everybody's kind of story arc. So when it came to writing book two, it was already in my mind. So I'd already set everything up in book one. And in book two, it was just really fun to start playing out those backstories and showing all of the secrets that I'd had to hide in book one.
Yeah, it was very evident. I enjoyed getting to those points in book two, just reflecting back on book one and what was happening there. Your book has so many elements that make it really exciting and fresh. The romantic tension, the characters who are so much more than meets the eye, monsters living secretly among people, the time travel, and the concept of taking that time from humans. When you hear from the fans, what stands out to them the most?
I've really noticed that different people have things that they love the most. So some people really love Aaron and Joan together. Some people really love the time travel. And some people, the ones that are most touching to me, tell me this is the first time they've ever seen themselves in a book. So I'm getting all kinds of amazing responses. And yeah, it means so much to me to hear them.
Oh, I love that for you, because especially, once again, representation, I think that's really important to have. Now that we've laid down the basics about the series, I want to go in more detail about the book. Joan is half Chinese and half English, in addition to being half human and half monster. Can you talk about how giving this character a mixed background enhanced the story?
Well, I have definitely heard from people saying that it really means a lot to them. Even people coming up to me in lines at signings saying it means so much to even their children, seeing themselves for the first time. So for me, growing up, I never got to see myself. I really vividly remember this lamb ad that was on television. It was about 20 seconds, and it had a Chinese girl in it with an Australian accent. And it's so strange that 20-second ad was the only time I really saw myself at all growing up in media. And it meant so much to me. And it didn't only mean so much to me. I really noticed that all of the kind of Chinese Australian people in my generation remembered that lamb ad. So I feel like when you're giving representation, you never know who's going to get to read it. But you're kind of hoping that you're adding to this pool of stories that you didn't get when you were growing up. I wrote this book with another author, at the same time as another author called Shelley Parker Chan, and we were really saying to each other, if we build it, they will come, because at the time there were not really that many other, especially Chinese Australian fantasy books. So we were hoping, because we would have read those books ourselves if we had them. So really, that's why I wrote it.
You are the change you want to see in the world. You're creating that change now. The main character also carries a lot of guilt and trauma following the events of the previous book that leads her to a lot of personal growth. What was your intention with her character development?
I had really wanted to show a character who is portrayed as an anti-hero, as somebody who's not the hero of the book, and yet we have a lot of sympathy for her because we're seeing her going through so much in the first book. Really, at the very beginning of the book, her whole family dies. And I mean, she has to grow up really overnight and make really big decisions like, I'm going to save them. I'm going to save them, even though there's a moral component to that where, by saving them, maybe other people are going to die. And I think when characters start to have to make really big choices like that, you can see them having to mature, like having to stop seeing the world, I guess, so naively.
Yeah, absolutely. The guilt and trauma that she carries, like we can still see the repercussions of it, the consequences along in the second book as well. The value of family, loyalty, and heritage is also important in the series. But you also emphasize making your own path and choosing what's right despite what family may demand. I thought that was a really important message. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think I grew up as a mixed race person with really two different backgrounds, Maltese and Chinese Malaysian, and then the third, of course, culture, which is Australian. And I really wanted to show a character who belongs in multiple worlds like that, who has really loving families on both sides. And even though those families are different, I think the love that they have for her is the thing that makes them so similar. And then the love that she has for them is also, in a way, one of the big conflicts of the book, because moving more to the metaphor now, which is, it's a bit of a messy metaphor. Monsters and humans in the books really have, monsters are hurting humans. In the first book, humans are killing monsters, and that's a conflict that can't be resolved. And I think that's during Central Crisis in a way. Like, how can she loves both sides? That's not the issue. It's just that both sides don't love each other. So how can she reconcile that within herself?
So the tagline of the book says, "The fate of every future rests in the hands of a monster." Can you talk more about writing a protagonist who would not traditionally be considered a hero?
I was really inspired by, watching movies when I was growing up where you're really identifying with the hero, those big blockbuster action movie heroes. And then suddenly, just out of nowhere, you see a group of people who look like you for the first time on the screen in the movie. And then you realize that, the hero's beating them up, the hero's killing them. And I just often find myself in those kind of action movies seeing Asian characters lying on the ground after the hero's beaten them up or killed them, and then the camera follows the hero. It doesn't follow the people on the ground. And so I was really inspired by that to think about, what would it be like to write a book where the hero of the book, even a really good, decent hero, is fighting against you rather than for you. And so that was really the seed of the whole series for me.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why I love Joan so much, is because she's the bad guy. But is she really a bad guy? She has a lot of choices to make, and sometimes they might not be good choices. But how many people have been in her shoes like that? Your career as an author must feel like a whirlwind. You went straight from being a newcomer to writing a series and having your books translated to more than 10 languages. What has this journey been like for you so far?
It's been absolutely surreal. I think every first-time author knows the feeling of writing a book and just wondering, is anyone going to read this other than my own friends? And so every step of this whole process has been so exciting. I feel like even knowing that other people are going to read it is just the most exciting thing in the whole world. And then, like, as a bonus, it's also on bookshelves. What a surreal and amazing thing, and what a privilege. And then, what as a bonus, I feel like I've had a really amazing journey where, yeah, it's been translated, so I'll get amazing and lovely messages from people in Brazil, in Turkey, in France, in Germany. And in a million years, I would never have imagined when I was writing in the library that could possibly happen.
And I think additionally, on the terms of talking about representation, and because your book is being translated into like multiple languages, multiple countries, like other people who are also of mixed background that may not be English speaking are also getting to experience your book too. So that's very exciting for me. Every time I see every time that I see that you mention another language being published in, it's like another celebration for me, because like even though I won't be able to read it in that language, someone else will get to read it. So it's always going to be very exciting to see you succeed that way. Your background is so varied and interesting. You have Malaysian-Chinese and Maltese parents, and you were born and raised in Australia. Can you talk about what identity means to you when you have a mixed background?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I was growing up, I would often only see, for some reason, kind of single-raced couples portrayed on television. I almost never saw mixed-race people except for in my own family. That was just when I was growing up. It's very different now, of course. So it was really important to me to kind of portray different cultures in the book, as well as, because I'm from different cultures, and I think many people have that same experience of having one culture at home, or maybe even two cultures at home and another culture in the world. And that was a really fun thing to write about. At the time, it was weird. I didn't really have that many templates. I hadn't really seen that many stories like that before. Of course I have now. I think everything has changed so much in the last, 5 years even.
I also noticed how you honored Aboriginal peoples in the acknowledgement section of your book. How has your identity come to embrace these people too?
Yeah, great question. In Australia, before really any important event, any meeting, any sporting event, you'll have an acknowledgement of country. So I'm from Wurundjeri country, and I think it's a way of respecting people who have always been here.
I think that's great. We don't have anything like that in America. To my knowledge, we don't do that here. So to see that you acknowledge the people whose lands that you're currently on is quite a new experience, and I'm so happy to see that. I'm curious how your personal goals and dreams have changed since you became a well-established author.
Oh my goodness, so much. I think at the start I was really hopeful that that I would be able to write full time, and that I think that was one of the dreams that came true. At the moment, I'm writing full time, and it's just something I would never have imagined I would ever get to do. It's such a privilege, and yeah, I think. It's funny, I think coming from an editorial background, I never thought I would be on the other side of the desk, if that makes sense. I never thought someone would be editing me and not me editing somebody else. So that really feels like a privilege as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And obviously, I can't wait to see what else you give us after the Monster series. Can you tell us a memory that sticks out to you from the time you were writing this book?
Yes, I think I have several memories of this, but one of my abiding ones is just writing with a group of friends in the library, all of us really hoping and dreaming that maybe one day our books will get published. And yeah, at least 3, 4 of them have been published. So it's unbelievable. It's something, I feel like we dreamed up something and then it happened.
Manifesting that dream, it happened. Yay. We are a K-pop station, and I'm curious if you've discovered any new K-pop songs since we last talked.
I have discovered Stray Kids because I didn't know that there were Australians in the group, so that was very exciting.
Excellent choice. I hear about them all the time as well. Your new book, Never a Hero, was just released this fall in 2023. Can you give us your most favorite line from the book?
I've been using this line with my signature, and it's "we knew each other before this." I really wanted that. I love that feeling, that kind of poignant feeling that you can sometimes get in time travel, where people can't remember or people don't know someone yet. So that one always makes me feel that feeling of like, oh, that poignant feeling. We knew each other before this.
Oh, I just got like butterflies in my chest because it's such a romantic line. You have one more book in the Monster series coming up to wrap up the story. Have you begun writing the finale or have an idea of how it will end?
Oh, I had definitely got an idea of how it will end. I've plotted it all out. I'm writing the first draft at the moment, and I'm so excited for this one. I think this is the one I'm most excited about because it's only fun times now, at least for me.
Only for you. I'm so excited for that. And not only just to see how it all ends up, but like your writing, obviously I love it. That's why we're here to talk about your book, but just your storytelling and to see how all these characters are going to grow and where they're going to end up. So I'm very excited. Where can we find your books for purchase?
Oh, you can find them in every bookstore. You can find them on online bookstores. And yes, please check out Only a Monster and the sequel, Never a Hero.
And where can we find you to follow your works?
I'm at Vanessa.Len_writes on Instagram.
My guest today has been Vanessa Len with her book, Never a Hero. You can pick it up wherever books are sold. To see more from writers in the Asian book sphere, including Vanessa with her previous book, Only a Monster, take a look at our other interviews here on the red carpet. I'm Gemma for the K-pop TV Broadcast Entertainment Network, and I'll see you next time.